Hello, everyone. I'm just going to show you real quick, maybe not super quick, what we can do inside of Monsoon and how we can find potential sellers. So as you can see, I was in, don't pay any attention to that. I was in MLS and then we are in Monsoon. So this is what it looks like when you log into it. And then I always click on new search. So click on new search. And then I have added many other points of interest to me inside of it. And you can do that too by going down here, click add, modify, and reorder. So things that I've added that I think are important is subdivision. There's another one that's called subdivision something else. Let me see if I can find it. Subdivision name, and I don't use that one. I use just subdivision. And then also owner is important. I mean, you can play around with this all that you want. And then once you're done, you can hit save. So let's identify, let's say that you have a buyer who is looking in a very specific location. Like let's say we're going to use the office area just because that's the easiest one to use. Okay, so the office is located at 70th Avenue Bell. So, and I love squares, by the way. Squares make me happy because that's how we live here. So let's just do a square. So let's say you have a buyer who wants to, actually, I hate this square mile because it has other houses. So let's get rid of that. Let's go just north. Okay, so let's see. All right, so let's do a square. And you can get an idea of how many homes are available in that area. So up here at the top, it says 877 homes. Now, not all of those people are actually ready, willing, or able to sell. Some people may have just moved in. So some things that I do are I look at sale date. So sale date, I leave at the top. I'm not sure that this is at the top on yours. So if it is not, then be sure to add this as something and reorder it to the top. So let's say we want somebody who's going to be moving soon. Let's go back to, I mean, you could go back as you want. So we could go back to the 90s and January 1st. And then let's say that people live in their homes for somewhere between 7 to 10 years. So we could go back 7 to 10 years if you'd like. I have been going back recently to about 2016. So that's just about 5 years. So, and I go to the end of 2016. Okay, so let's just do that. So then we can see how many people have owned their home for that long. So that's still a substantial amount, 552. So then let's say your buyer, or you want to decide if you want to just look for a listing, that's fine too. So let's say your buyer only wants to purchase something that's 2,400 square feet or bigger. So in the square footage, it'll search the homes that are square feet. And then let's also say that they don't want anything bigger than a single story. Let's just see if we can weed this down. Then you click search again. Okay, so now we've got 273 homes. Okay. I'm looking at some of these and I'm seeing 5.7 million and 14 million. So logic tells me that that's probably not residential. So I definitely want to come in here to property type and say residential. Single family residential. There we go. Now I'm going to click search again. Okay, so now we have 201. Okay, so let's say your you want to make sure that you're going to get somebody who's actually moving. So owner occupied. Let's look and see what we've got as far as that goes. That dwindles down just a little bit more. So we have 181 homes. Let's say that your client only wants to spend $500,000. So let's say the max that they would have purchased the home for back in those days would be, let's just say 350. Okay, so 141. Now you could really get crazy and move your line up and say they only want to live north of Grover's and they only want to live east of 70th Avenue, and you could search there. So then we've got 49 houses. I would say if you could get your buyer to narrow down what you're looking for, what they're looking for in a strategic location, this would give you the best opportunity to do it. Now, let's say that your buyer also only wants a pool. This was also something I had to add. So you can add has pool. So we could click and we could see, Okay, 33 results have pools. So now what do we do with this, Kesley? Now you've told me that we have these potential people who could potentially sell. Like we don't know at this point if they're actually going to sell. We just are looking at the data and thinking that it's possible. So you could knock on these doors, you could send mailers, you could door hang, which would be door dropping something off there so that they could potentially contact you. You could potentially get circle marketing lists. These are phone numbers given. You can pull lists in their services that you can pay for that. And you could pull lists to do that, and you could call them. You could just let them know you have a buyer. Now, lots of things to be said about, we have a buyer that wants to buy your house. There are lots of investors who do that. And so a good portion of the time, the seller just thinks that you're like trying to scam them or whatever the case may be. So if you truly have a buyer, I would use that in your marketing so that your consumer knows that you do have a real live breathing buyer. Now be careful to not offend with the equal housing. So your protected classes, be careful with that. So, okay, so all right, so this is if you're looking for a buyer or you're looking for a listing, whatever the case may be. Okay, I'm going to do a new search. All right, so now let's look at what it would look like. Okay, Kesley, I want to go farming. Okay, I love this. I want to go farming. Okay, so we're going to farm. Okay, so how do we decide where we're going to farm? Lots of people want to farm where they live, and that's fine. And yet, I love to let the numbers tell me whether or not I can farm. So let's look at what a turnover ratio would be. So I'm going to use this square mile right here. Union Hills to the 101, 75th to 67th. So again, I like squares. If you don't like squares and you have a subdivision name, then guess what? You put it in the subdivision name right here, and you type in subdivision, and you can do it that way. Otherwise, we're just going to live inside squares. And I'll give some more details about that in a moment. Okay, so we want to find out how many homes there are. So let's also say that we want the property type to be residential, single families. By the way, this square mile could potentially have condos, townhomes, apartments, things like that. We're just going to look at single stories at this moment. So we're going to go ahead and search. Okay, so this yields 1525. All right, so then we're going to go over here to the MLS. Now we're going over to the MLS and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So we're going to take a square, take the same square. Oops. Take the same square. We're going to draw the square. And then we're going to look just for residential. And we said single family, so let's stay with single families. Now I look at active all the way through close. So I select all of these. And then I am going to do for the last 365 days. So I'm looking for how many homes have listed and or sold in the last year. Okay, so 119 homes. So then we take 119 and we divide it by the 1525. So that gives us, let's see if you can see this. All right, that gives us 0.078%. So by the way, you want to see a 7% turnover or better. So this gives us almost an 8% turnover. So what does that mean? So we want that turnover to be that high because we want to make sure that when we invest our time, energy, and money, that we're actually going to make money. So inside here, you could see that there's been 119 transactions that have happened in the last 1 year. So then the next thing I would recommend is, okay, we've decided we're going to farm this neighborhood. Okay, so then the next thing I would do is, let's see if we can take a listing. So I'm going to look at canceled and expired for the last 1 year to see if there are any potential canceled or expireds from the last 1 year that we could potentially knock, deliver, door drop, call, any of this nature. So then over here, I'm going to go look at them. So this one is expired. So I click on the multiple listing. I love the history tab because the history tab is going to tell us everything. So history, Okay, so it looks like it canceled and it did not go back on the market. So I would call this a potential lead that we would want to knock, door drop, connect with in some way or another. Same with this one. So this one also canceled and did not relist. Then this one canceled and did not relist. And then this one canceled and did not relist. So if you were going to look at farming this neighborhood, this would be a great neighborhood to farm right now because you could go after these 12 canceled or expired. Oh, this one did relist. So they did relist and they did sell. And you could identify them as potentials for your next listing. Now, I do also, so if this one's canceled, I am going to go also to Monsoon and just make sure that they didn't accidentally sell to somebody and not on the multiple listing. So this one, they did not sell, so it didn't change. So you would look here in deed history to see if that is something that changed hands. Let's just look at this one and see if it did. Okay, so this one sold, okay, so they sold it in March. Let me just look at the history again. And then it looks like they put it in the market in July. This is a true depiction of how people might move into a property and want to move shortly after. So, okay, so that shows you how to farm, how to figure out turnover. So we're going to take the total number of houses in the place that we're going to farm, whether it's subdivision or in the square, and then we're going to look for active through closed to see when they actually, how many there are, and then we're going to divide this number by the number of total houses, and that's going to tell us whether or not. Now, what if it's 6.9%? Okay, you could round up, and yet again, farming is the long game, so it's your time and effort, and yet I would say really and truly live inside of 7%. Okay. All right, so now we've talked about how to find a house for a potential buyer, and we've talked about how to figure out farming. So let's look at what else can the multiple listing do. All right, new search. Sorry, Monsoon. Okay, so let's look, what if you want to go after buyers? Eventually our market will shift, and one day we'll have to find buyers for our listing. So what if you want to find, let's go to this same square mile, and you want to find renters. We can do that too. All right, so renters, property type, no, it's gonna be legal class. It's gonna be residential rental. There we go. So legal class, rental, residential. So we can look at, let's just look at that. So we're gonna hit search. There are 252 rentals. What is happening over here? I love that I did this. Are these apartments? These are condos. So this also lets you see like what the rental ratio is, which could be important to your buyers and your sellers. So, okay, so we've got 252. Now, probably there are some that are not actually rentals. They just have been recorded incorrectly. And yet, look, so I clicked on this one on Oribi, and it is definitely a rental because it's listed by an LLC. So then here's another one. It's also listed by an LLC. So these ones for sure are rentals. So what can we do with these? Again, we can knock on these, we can mail to these, we could work on calling these. These are people who are renting. How long has it been rented? I don't know, and yet logic tells me, and so do statistics, that most people who rent for a very long time. So this could give you an opportunity to really farm rentals, and you could also reach out to the landlord, even if it is an LLC, but also you'll find that there's, regular live human beings too. You could reach out to them, again, mailing, calling. If it is if it is a actual human and not an entity, you could find out where they also own property. Let's see if we can find one. Perfect. So these people, so I'm going to just click on this and open up their parcel number. That's not what I wanted to do. Here we go. All right. So look, they get their, I am assuming they're military based on this. So this is what their tax mailing address is. So you could mail to that. So that would be how you could identify potential sellers through that also. Investors sometimes want to sell, and so do real live human beings. So this is an opportunity to farm for buyers and for listings as well. Okay, so we now have talked about how to look for a listing for a buyer. We've talked about how to farm and figure out the turnover. And now we have looked at how to figure out how to identify rentals. You could also, by the way, since we're talking about rentals, you could cross-reference this with the multiple listing and just see if you can find out when, like, let's just change this right here to residential rentals. Let's get rid of, yeah, sure, that we can leave all that still the same. So you can identify that these people moved into these properties in the last 1 year. So they may be looking at potentially moving now or not. So you could, then you might have a better idea, let's just look, of when they'd be moving. So let's say this person moved in, let's click on this one. So these people moved in May. So when is a good time to reach out to those people to see if they want to be homeowners in 2021? Well, I would say now. Let's get them to a lender, get a conversation happening with them. They're already spending $1,900 a month in rent. Figure out what that would look like in a purchase and see if that would still keep them in the neighborhood and kind of give them that kind of information that would help move them forward as they're thinking about what's important to them and owning a home and you being the resource for them. Okay, let's see what else the Monsoon can do. Okay, so let me go back to this. We're going to click new search again. All right. Okay, what else do I think that I have taught you the things that I find to be the most valuable as far as what Monsoon can do. The first part of this video that we talked about finding a seller for your buyer, you could also use in your farming. So you could look and see, like, let's take the same square mile and draw the square again. And we know that the square mile has a 7% turnover. And let's say we only want to farm or potentially sell single family homes in the square mile. So then we're gonna, again, go into the sales date up here and we're gonna change it to, oops, let's go 99 and then January. And then let's go, you could go back further. Like, let's say you're like, no, Kesley, I really want to go for the people who might be living in a 3,000 square foot home and have lived there forever. So let's just go through 2009 and let's go to the end of the year there. So then let's say they do have a 3,000 square foot home. So that is going to be under square footage. And we're going to say the minimum is 3,000 square feet. And let's just search and see what we find. Okay, so there's 46 people who have lived in the home since in the 90s and through the 2009, and they have 3,000 square feet. Now, why do I identify those ones? I identify those because chances are when they moved in, they potentially had other humans living with them, and now they have less humans living with them. So they may not need all of that space. In the exact opposite, you could look at, let's say, somebody who purchased in 2010 in January. And let's say we go to 2016 and the 30th again, and we say somebody who had a max square footage of 1,500 square feet. So this would be a move up buyer, right? So the 17, you could go 1,600 square feet. So this could identify people who are potentially going to move based on the fact that they need a bigger house or a smaller house. You could do it based on pools. Maybe all the people who have pools maybe don't want pools anymore. Who knows? You can look at financing types. So let's say VA. Let's say you want to target veterans. Okay, let's look and see who we have that has purchased since, what did I have in here? I had January 2010 to December 2016 that has a VA. Let's look and see. So there's 33, so you could identify these people. The thing about VA is that they don't know that they can actually use their loan twice or multiple times. And they could have 2 VA loans at one time. So you get to provide that information to them and have a conversation with your lender before you go saying things out loud. And yet, here's a way to provide information to them. You put them on a mailing system, put them on a door drop system, put them on a knock system, or find their numbers. remember that I really truly believe that most of the public is not educated. And so because of that, we really need to be the resource for them. Okay, I think that is going to conclude our video for now. If you have questions on this video, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I hope that you found this valuable and something that you can use to grow your business.